Olá, seja muito bem-vindo a mais um episódio do podcast #Adoração. E hoje, dando abertura a uma série muito especial, onde nós vamos fazer um ranking, uma conversa, uma série de conversas sobre esse ranking que é os 10 maiores álbuns de louvor e adoração da história. E hoje nós estamos começando aqui com um convidado muito especial que trabalhou diretamente na produção, no arranjo, na orquestração desse álbum, e o álbum é Deus Conosco, a cantata amada no Brasil, God With Us, produzida, liderada originalmente por Don Moen, e o nosso convidado é o arranjador, orquestrador desse projeto, Camp Kirkland. E também recebendo o meu querido amigo, saudades dele, tive o privilégio de trabalhar um pouquinho com ele aqui no Brasil, aprender bastante, Sérgio Lula, que trabalhou nas versões desse musical para o português, lá no início, lá no meio dos anos 90, para Bom Pastor. Sérgio, privilégio receber você e aproveita já dá uma palavrinha aí sobre o nosso convidado também e o legado dele para todos nós que amamos cantatas e trabalhamos com orquestras e corais nas igrejas locais.
Falar sobre Deus conosco é muito gostoso, porque tem um lugar muito especial na minha vida, no momento que aconteceu no meu ministério e oportunidades que surgiram devido a esse musical. E ter o privilégio hoje de ouvir, de aprender também com Camp Kirkland é imenso. Eu não tive a chance de trabalhar com ele ao vivo, em alguma coisa especificamente, mas, ao mesmo tempo, sinto como se o conhecesse, porque já fiz tantas coisas que tinham arranjo de Camp Kirkland e algo sempre muito belo, né? Então, tenho certeza que vai ser um tempo bem gostoso.
Camp, thanks again for accepting our invitation. It's an honor to have you with us. As Sergio was saying, you are such a legend for the musical world, the church, local church world. So it's an honor to have you with us. And I want to start asking you, do you agree with me? God With Us is one of the 10 best worship albums from all times?
I do agree with you, and I have reasons for that, and I'm sure we'll discuss those. But I do want to say, first of all, to all that are listening, and to muito obrigado for letting me be here with you today. And I'm blessed by the way that you pronounce my name in English, because all of my Brazilian friends always say Camp Kirkland. So and I love that too. I actually love the Portuguese language. It's just a beautiful language to me. I try to learn a little more every time I come to Brazil, and I'm looking forward to the next time that I visit Brazil, hopefully within next year.
I'm going to interrupt you. You were saying about Brazil. So I know that you love Brazil, and I know that you came here for many times.
Yes,
how many times were you here?
I think 16.
Wow.
And yeah, I've traveled to, my first trip there was actually to Campinas. I was doing my wife and I traveled there for me to do a weekend workshop with a large Nazarene church in Campinas. Mm-hmm. And one that they bought a factory and made it a church.
Yeah, building. That's their biggest church.
Yeah, I had a good time with that and enjoyed Brazil, that visit. But subsequently, once we began a global missions project that I travel with missions, we have been to Curitiba a number of times, also to Sao Paulo and to Rio. And to Brasilia, and to Maceió. And my last trip there, once again, was by myself, but not with the team, to Porto Velho. Wow. And I had tambaqui. Ooh, I had the big fish.
I never visited Porto Velho, so you are more Brazilian than me, I think.
Well, I'm looking forward to going back there to get the big fish again, the tambaqui.
So back to God With Us.
Yes. God With Us was a unique adventure for me. And I was at the time that we began the process of creating that musical, the praise and worship songs that were beginning to be recognized by many churches were in different parts of the country, but had not really entered the mainstream church at that point. And one of the purposes of creating the musical was to make it choir and worthy, so that those songs could be sung by choirs in multiple parts, as opposed to most of the songs were being sung in churches all in unison by the congregation. So we were looking for a way to introduce many of these wonderful songs to the church, to the mainline church, so that they would have an opportunity to sing those things with their choirs. And I love orchestra, so hopefully for the ones that had orchestras could use orchestras as well.
We had the same experience in Brazil. The hymns was sang for many churches, for choirs, for in many events, but worship songs was a different thing. So God with us with a different material for, like you said, for choir, for orchestra, with a new cloth, and the church receiving so lovely, so amazing.
Well, and it overwhelmed us at the level that it was received by the churches here in the United States, and then ultimately by now churches literally around the world in many places.
Yeah.
And how was the invitation to be part of this project? We are talking about these worship wars, as it's called. Like the traditional concept of worship, of services, against this contemporary concept. So God with us make this approach, like the blended approach. We're trying to do a little bit of both of them. So, and I read, I think Mike Coleman, who I have the honor to be a friend of, he's saying that it took 3 years to produce the musical.
That's
so
probably
it was a
true.
long production. And how was the invitation to be part of that?
Well, from its inception, that's probably true. And let me say this too. I didn't believe that those songs that we were creating, working with, and God with us, were the only music of the church. I did not want to throw out our hymn traditions that we've had in the past. Wonderful songs that speak to our hearts in unique ways of teaching doctrine. And but the worship songs brought many of my the churches like I attend, the Baptist churches, it brought them to a new focus on really directing their praise directly to God. And so it's been a great learning process for me as well since that time when we began working on this musical. Don Moen, who is a recognized worship leader, as you know, around the world, a kind and generous man, and a wonderful composer. And I love Don. He just has such a great heart, a great spirit. And Don approached initially Tom Fetke with the idea of the musical. And so the idea was launched to begin thinking about it. And Tom and I had become friends and had started to work together on several other projects. And so Tom contacted me and asked me if I would like to be involved. I said, absolutely, love it. I love working with Tom, and he's very organized, and we just had a great time working together. So the invitation was through Tom for me, but then ultimately the whole team, which included the staff of Integrity, along with Tom and myself.
Oh, very nice. And for you, Sergio, how was to be invited to be part for the translation of this musical in Portuguese? So I'm very curious about that. I don't know this story. I would love to hear.
Well, like I was working worship pastor in some churches, was exactly in my first ministry. And like in that time, not today, we hadn't so many translations of new musicals. The works from some printers was so few. So we need to make translations to use in our church. And okay, I can share with another church, or other church can share with me. Okay. And I have a particular experience in my life because I love to travel in a bus. And I had travel to my master's degree in 2 days. The travel was in 2 days in bus. Because, why? Because I love to read, and by church I cannot time to read. I can to listen new material, to look new song books. I had time for a lot of things. And in some time, I had that travel with a friend. And this friend had said, oh, I received a new musical from the United States.
Yeah,
oh,
we have to remember that time we didn't have Spotify, we didn't have YouTube. So
exactly.
The access to new material was very, very difficult to have.
Exactly. And he had
material for us.
The songbook and a cassette tape with him.
Yeah.
So, yeah. And okay, let's listen this. And during the travel, sometime while he's take a nap, I put the musical to listen. That was wonderful for me. And I cannot explain, but I took a pencil and I start to translate. So almost at the same time that I'm listening, I was translating in almost 2 hours. Okay, the musical has 1 hour, but I returned and translate something more that I had some doubt at the middle time. And when I had a new experience for me, never happened like that musical. So I know, I'm really sure that God gave me that translation because it happened in the complete different way of everything that I translated in all my life. And was different because when I returned to my church, I put a challenge. Okay, let's do this, but let's do with orchestra. In Brazil doesn't have the material. So it was difficult to buy the material directly from United States because the IRS of Brazil is necessary, many things to do. So, okay, let's try. Let's buy the orchestra, let's buy the CD, not cassette, but CD. And we received the material. We hadn't a big orchestra in our church. So I need to talk with another church to do the share the talents and to do the musical. And in 6 months we had that musical, and we present some days in our church. Was marvelous, unforgettable, and everything started in a bus.
You mentioned about the technology being not the same as it is today. When this musical came out, there was no such thing as PDF files.
Yes.
There was digital, the ability to send digital music. As a matter of fact, at this time, Finale was very, very recent. The Finale program, which is where everything was typeset, was in typeset in the Finale software, and it just the original publication of God with Us, all of the orchestrations were hand copied. Wow. They were not typeset.
Wow, a lot of work. So and Camp, the musical has I think that's a very unique mark that the main characteristic, I think I can say that, is the theological conduction. It's like it talks about the dwelling place of God in the middle of his people, and it shows that the musical shows the different kind of dwelling place of God during the redemption story. So the redemption plot, we can say. And I was listening last week. I was watching the video, which was recorded 2 years later, I think. And I was watching and all the orchestra and Don and the choir, 1,000 voice choir, and the arrangements are so majestic. They are so wonderful. I want to know from you how the theological content influenced you to make the arrangements, that kind of arrangements.
Well, in the arranging process of the musical itself, Tom Fetke did most of the choral arrangements, but I did some of the choral arrangements. I did all of the orchestration, and so it was in everything that I do when it comes to arranging, I'm always focused on the lyrics. I'm focused on the words of the songs. And now I realize that the songs that I work on have already been written. I'm not writing the song at the beginning. They already exist. But I'm taking the context of the song musically and lyrically and thinking, how can I paint the picture or the feel of what we're trying to say through the songs. That's always been important to me. Now, we also knew, of course, that this musical was going to be largely driven with rhythm section because the nature of the songs are most normally are rhythm driven songs. So I'm thinking about that as well, and how we can bend the use of the rhythm section within the context of each song. The musical begins with praise and thanksgiving and praise, and then it moves into after we get through a few songs, we're turning the corner to talk about the truths of God, and then the truths of God lead to, obviously, as you said, the redemption story, and then of course the victory that comes through that. And I love whenever you're ready, I want to mention to you about the reading that was done at the end.
You can say right now.
Well, Don Moen brought a recording of that reading by a pastor at his church in Mobile, Alabama. And as soon as it started, I knew exactly what it was, because I had heard it in my church in Florida, in Jacksonville, Florida, where I grew up and lived and was serving on the staff. I had heard it in my church by my pastor, and actually a visiting pastor also by the name of Daryl Gilliard, who quoted that from Genesis to Revelation, Jesus appears throughout the entire Bible. He is there. He was there. He is there. He will be there. He's there throughout the entire Bible. And so I had already heard it, and as soon as nobody else in the room had ever heard that before, and they were really moved by it. And I said, I know exactly what that is. And when they said they wanted to use that, I could not wait to get into the writing modes because I had to underscore all of that. And I'm not sure how. I have to go back and see how long it is, but it's at least 6-7 minutes long or something.
Yeah,
oh yes,
at least. And it's a significant amount of music. And I'm very careful when I'm underscoring a narration. It's nice to be able to go into the recording studio and get to the triumphant moments or something and be able to bring in all the big brass and everything like that. You can't do that in a live performance. You're going to cover up the narrator. He'll never be heard with the words that you want people to hear. So you'll notice that narration is largely starts small and is very gradually growing to the end. And that's my, I am always thinking about writing for live music, not thinking about writing for recorded music. I want to write for the church. And so that's always been my concept. So I was really excited about getting a chance to do that. And we knew that was going to be really the climactic moment of the musical as that reading was read. And then as we came in with the choir, no other name but the name of Jesus.
Oh, it's so powerful.
And then all hail the power of Jesus' name. And so that it was just fun. I just had a great time doing that, being a part.
And you were saying about your like you were saying that you are so careful to do that, thinking about the local church and how the churches are going to try to do that again in their local context. And we can see that in all the music. The music is so church made, I think we can say that. It's so, we can see, we feel like it's our church, it's the room of our church. Even in the recording, the video, we can feel that. I'm at home, I'm with my fellows worshiping God together. So that's, for me, it's very clear in all the musical, in all the aspects of the musical, that's very clear. And Sergio, here in Brazil, this musical is loved from
Yes,
all over.
even today is not outdated. Is no, you well, I translated almost 30 years ago,
Right.
and I was I really happy when you talk about, because I listening this last week after many years. I don't know. Oh, let me listen. God with us, and I was so impacted again. Was so fresh for me. I know that I translated, but I listen in English. So, well, even today is a very good experience. If you want to impact your church, even today, God with us is a very good way to do that. To carrying the church for a real worship, because there, like Camp say, you have a joy part, you have a reflection part, you have a grief part when he share about God will make a way. Is a very, very sad experience that
And all those
share with them.
testimonies were very powerful.
And many people has connection with that part. When I did, I made the musical for some days. I invited different people to share about their experience. So every day was different experience. So the musical was different every day, even for us. That was singing or playing. Well, so even today is a fantastic.
Camp, for me, the musical is fresh. I agree completely with Sergio's definition that it sounds fresh. And for you, which is the reason for that? We're talking about 30 years almost. In 2 years, it's going to be
30 years next year.
Yeah. So for you, why is that? Which is the secret of that?
You know what? The only thing that I can say is God is in that. You know. And by the way, God is with us. And but I can't speak to that specifically. But it's sad to me that in the United States that so many of our churches are just wanting the newest song. We just want the newest song, whatever the newest song is, and we have access to the newest song with immediacy from companies like Praise Charts and Lifeway Worship and some others, and most of the songs that are in that musical are not sung in churches here anymore, and that's sad to me because there's some wonderful songs there.
And we don't have time to live that songs, for the songs means something for us, to have a meaning for us, because today is a song and next Sunday is another song, and unfortunately many leader songs is not taking care if you are singing with him or not. The important is just to him to sing. And that time was completely different.
Okay. I made some research about that. When we look the first CCLI top 25 songs list, the age of the songs, if we do the if you calculated the time of them, how can I say that? The median time,
the amount of time that they had.
The amount of time, yes.
Time of how
average
much time they were used.
Yeah, they were reading. They were reading in the average 17 years.
Yeah.
In 2002, that number, that age, had decreased to 4 years, I think so.
That's
and
right.
Nowadays it's decreasing even more.
Yeah.
So that's what you are saying. That's real.
Now we do know that sometimes songs are written for a time, for a season. That would be true 100 years ago of some of the hymns that were written that are no longer sung anymore. But the great songs are going to live. A song like "Shout to the Lord" has got life today, and written by Darlene Zschech. I think she was 16 years old when she wrote that, and but that song that song is going to last, and so that's going to be true of a lot of songs. Some are going to last, some are for a specific season. So
that's
one thing that I think the musical remain fresh, remain not outdated, is because had orchestra. Orchestra has almost the same weight, the same way to work. If you think in Beethoven, you can think in 19th century, you can think about today, and Beethoven is the same.
Like
but with bands, it's changing every day. So many songs that was recorded with bands, when you listen, oh, this today is not the way that I like to do. I like to play. I like to sing. So with orchestra in a chorus, when I go to the school that I'm working, has teenagers there every day singing like a choir, and they love. Is a no end way to express the music, how music lives in our lives, and in that style can be outdated for many people, I know, but never ends. The bands or some style will end. But I think the choir and the orchestra will remain. Doesn't matter if sometimes has some crisis because they want something fresh for some way, but God with Us and many musicals also remains because of that. But God with Us has the orchestra, the choir, but the new way to communicate with the church, with worship songs, was the first one to do this, and today we have many other jobs like that.
There are we go back in eras previous to this. I know that you're primarily focused on musicals utilizing modern worship songs, but if you go back to John W. Peterson back in the 60s, when he came onto the scene, people said, wow, this works. We can do this in our churches. And one of the real classic musicals to me of 1974 was a musical called Alleluia. And that musical was a compilation of songs by Bill and Gloria Gaither that Ron Huff arranged, and it became a moment in time. And I really believe that God with Us took that same element, because it was brand new, fresh, had a purpose, had a purpose and a function to bring this new music to the people everywhere. I got another great story for you about God with Us that I think you'll enjoy.
I love them.
When God with Us was supposed to release in November of the year before it actually released, I believe it released in April. I think it was 92, and but I'd have to look it up to see. But
I think it's 93.
93 is when it was the publication date. So it was like November of 92. We were supposed to be done with it, and it was supposed to come out. Well, it just wasn't finished. It just wasn't coming together. And we didn't know why. We couldn't explain it because the arranging process for us is a fairly simple process. We got this many songs. We have this deadline. We have to get them done and have, but it just wasn't finished. We knew it wasn't finished, but we didn't know why. And I believe it was around January of the year that a song was discovered that we had not seen before or heard before. That was the song, Be Strong and Take Courage.
Wow.
That song was not even in the musical.
Wow.
And that song is so powerful. And that song is the one that turns the corner in the musical to take us to the richness of God's mercy and grace in our lives. And I love to share that story because once it was discovered, we said, wow, where did that come from? We have to have it. And we put it into the musical, and then the musical was released a few months later.
Wow, that's very nice story.
Is the favorite for many people.
For me.
I would ask that if it's your favorite.
What is my favorite?
Yeah.
I think in terms of that musical, I think that's my favorite song in the musical. I love in the musical the hymn "Great Is Thy Faithfulness." That's very significant to me because that's maybe my favorite hymn, one of my favorite hymns anyway. And but "Be Strong and Take Courage" just really moves me in a significant spiritual way.
Very nice. And Sergio, I want to ask you, how was you were part of? How was the recording process like? Bom Pastor was the company who distributed Integrate CDs and other projects here in Brazil. And so how was the process to record that with Bom Pastor?
Well, the process was that guy, the guy that showed me God with Us with a songbook and the cassette tape. He turned the music chief of Baptist Convention in São Paulo. And he said, Sergio, I'm thinking to invite Don Moen and say to the church, oh, let's sing together, invite an orchestra and do the same thing that Don Moen made in the United States, that he made a VHS with God with Us sometime after the original recording. So I said, well, this is a very good thing. So he invited Don Moen. Don Moen came using Guilherme Kerr translation at the same time. So I was the director. I need to make a different tempo in many songs to have the narration and the translation. So was something difficult.
I don't have connection to mention at the same sentence Don Moen and Guilherme Kerr. My connection is not so good.
Yeah, no, it happened. And my wife teach Don Moen to talk something in Portuguese. Wow. So yeah, a little thing. Some expressions, the same way he does in the musical. So let's sing, let's do together. So she teach in Portuguese, and he said everything. So after that presentation, Bom Pastor with came, Sergio, we are thinking to do God with Us with correct rights in Brazil. So we are talking with Integrity Music to have all rights and publishing in Brazil, CDs, everything. So we want to use your translation. Is some problem? No, it's not a problem. And I sang also with the group. Oh, okay, I don't know how many people sang in God with Us, but at least the sound is not so small choir. At least the is a big group. In Portuguese was not the case. It's a small group, but with very high quality. So we did, but was at least 5 years after when I was the first guy to make this in Brazil. So after when I did that, many people asked to me the songbook and everything to do in that church, in that church, in that church. When Bom Pastor made was not so fresh for the church because many churches made before. But okay, let's do it. Let's do it.
You did the event with Don Moen. Everybody wanted to make their song.
Yeah, many choirs. Well, I don't remember 20, 30 choirs. The same way that Don Moen, we use the same thinking. So with each choir with your clothes, original clothes, were so colorful also, like that experience in the United States.
Where was it, Sergio? Where was it, the event?
Where? In Osasco, in the municipal gymnasium in Osasco.
Wow. Very nice.
It was at least 300, 400 people singing.
So many good stories here. And Camp, my last question for you is, we're talking about 30 years since the recording and the release of the God With Us musical. We had then God For Us, God In Us, and so many musicals in sequence.
We have one more coming, by the way.
Oh, yeah?
God Help Us.
For integrate music?
I'm just kidding.
I know that you're kidding. But do you know there's a new one? I don't know the name. A more recent one, Don recorded. I don't know the name, but it's God with something. I don't remember.
Truly, Don Moen made another one called Mighty Cross.
Okay.
Before God For Us. Has the same way, almost the same way of the musical, but is about the cross of Jesus, right? And it's very good also. It's beautiful. It's beautiful, but it's outside of the trilogy, God With Us, God For Us, and God In Us.
That's good. And I want to ask you, Camp, for you, which is the main legacy? We already talked about a little bit about this, but to wrap it up, which is the main legacy of the God With Us musical for the local church, the global church, since we're talking about a musical which is loved all around the globe. So for you, which is this legacy?
I think the main legacy was that it was the first of its kind to try and introduce a music of its time, which we're still using songs that we call praise and worship songs, or whatever description you use. But it was the first of its kind, and it opened the door to more church at large to be able to utilize their whole choir, if they have instrumentalists, to utilize their whole orchestra, but I think the main thing that came out of it was not the fact that it was a musical in a book, but that it introduced people to a new sense of worship to God. I think many of the people worship God. There's no question about that before that and for centuries. But I think it introduced a new emotional and mental and heartfelt way of lifting up their praise through music to God. And if anything, if it drew people closer to God, that would be the greatest legacy. Through their worship, that they learned to worship deeper and with more meaningful experience, and that it drew them closer to God. I think that's the legacy of that musical.
Well, I want to thank you a lot, Camp. It's really an honor. I'm not so old. I'm 36, and I literally sing your arrangements since I was a kid. And I love your arrangements, so many of them. I love God With Us, and a lot of other musicals you did. So it's an honor to be here with you. Thanks again for accepting my invitation. I know that this conversation will bless a lot of people who are watching and listen. And thank you. I hope to see you here in São Paulo very soon. We hope that this pandemic time will end soon. So I'm looking forward to receive you here in Brazil again. Thanks again.
Let me share two things with you real quick. On June 9, that's a Wednesday, the First Baptist Church of Dallas, Texas, will be streaming a live virtual evangelistic concert to Brazil that may be of interest to you. And it will be on the Global Missions Project Facebook page and the Global Missions Project YouTube channel. And it will be at 7:30 p.m. your time.
At 9?
So I encourage you to possibly tune in, encourage your people to watch and hear this wonderful choir and orchestra in concert delivering. And I'll be the preacher, and I'll be presenting the gospel, and we'd love to see you there. And then let me also say they are going to be coming to São Paulo next June. They were supposed to come this June, but because of COVID, we can't do it. So the plan is for them to come and bring their choir and orchestra to São Paulo next June 2022. And then to everyone who's listening, let me say, Deus abençoe.
Great to know about that. Thanks for saying and sharing the news. God bless you a lot. We really hope to receive you here soon. Sérgio, muito obrigado. Prazer enorme rever você e poder bater esse papo. Brigadão mesmo, foi muito especial.
Eu é que agradeço pela oportunidade de relembrar um momento tão especial na minha vida, no meu ministério, e que Deus abençoe a todos aqueles que tiverem ainda a oportunidade de cantar Deus conosco, God with us. Com certeza será uma experiência bem gostosa.
A você que nos ouve, muito obrigado, nos assiste, muito obrigado. Lembrando que o hashtag Adoração e todos os outros programas da Rádio Transmundial estão lá em transmundial.org.br e no Instagram do IACA, @IACA Brasil. Vejo você na próxima semana. Deus abençoe.